Welcome to Podnutz, the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 156. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live call-in show for computer repair techs. The call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have Marvin Bee from maninthevan.net. How you doing, Marvin?
Fantastic.
Good to have you. And also joining us today, we have Matt Rodela from TechSiteBuilder.com. How you doing, Matt?
Good, good. Just still digesting the last little bit of Thanksgiving dinner.
leftovers, right?
That's it.
Awesome. And Chris, are you back with us?
It looks like it. You see me? Hear me okay?
We can see you. So let me introduce you before you disappear again. We have Chris Carruthers from the Remote Support Tech Team, and he's been gone for a couple weeks. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo!
How you doing, Chris?
I'm feeling very 8-bit right now.
You look a little pixelated.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What did you say? What was your connection? 5 meg down?
It was 5 meg down, but you got to think that there's 4 cell phones, 5 computers, a PlayStation, and a couple of other devices running off of it right now. So 5 megs is not going to do well. But I just tested it at 27. So as long as whatever's going on with the lines outside keeps going, I should.
Sorry, Chris.
Oh,
There
you offended him.
Oh, that was perfect timing. Sorry about that. All right, so we'll let him get that sorted out.
We need to get him onto open mesh routers where he can limit the other people and block them.
Yeah.
There you go.
Kick him out.
Yeah, just tell them stay off.
Yep.
Or get a real connection. Anyways, that's the Canadian connection. Anyways, so Matt, why don't you go ahead and tell me what's been up to, with you and your business and what you've been up to lately?
Okay, so the last couple months I've been, well, it's been a year in the making really, but the last couple months I've really been digging or going full force into transitioning from a kind of general computer consulting business into a more focused WordPress consulting business, and I'm hoping to have that completely completed by the end of the year. So I've got my new business name going. I've got the new business, all the legal stuff set up, and I've just started communicating with my current WordPress clients that I have this new business name, I have this new email address, start trying to reach out to me there. So it's been kind of a gradual process because I want to make sure I'm not going to lose my clients in the process. I want to keep the lines of communication open to let them know what's going on, and to make sure that nothing's going to be a surprise, and just slowly going through that. So that's been going really good. It's actually I got a lot of great feedback on the fact that I'm focusing my business, especially from my existing WordPress clients who, were kind of wondering, I know you're doing WordPress work for me, but you have this whole other computer business, and they were just kind of confused about the whole thing anyway. So it's good I feel good having a focus. They feel good that I'm focused specifically on the services that I'm providing to them. And I think in the next week or two, I'm going to hit them with the new pricing and services plans that's going to go along with the new company. So I'm still kind of figuring out exactly how I'm putting those together. I'm pretty sure I've got a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. And I'm going to put it all together in a nice looking PDF, send it out to everyone, let them know if they have any questions, let them know it's going to take effect on the 1st of 2016 so that they have plenty of time to make decisions, and just trying to do everything right in this transition so I can hit 2016 with the WordPress consulting business established and go from there.
Well, that sounds good. Now, Matt, let me ask you a question. Now, as a one-person entity, one-person shop, however you want to put it, you were doing computer repair, you were doing the WordPress consulting already, you were doing a blog, you've got all these different things going on. Now, as a one-person shop, can you see the benefits of niching down to doing one thing, being at WordPress, instead of doing both the computer repair and the WordPress?
Completely, yeah, and you hit the nail on the head by saying you're doing this and you're doing that, and it's to juggle so many different service offerings and projects and that sort of thing, that I was running into problems with just not being able to focus and not being able to provide the best service to my clients because I would have clients with different needs. And so, yeah, so in the beginning of this year, I kind of made an announcement on my podcast that I was going to spend the year focusing on focus, if you would. So, finding what I want to do, narrowing it down so that I can focus on really delivering the best possible service I could to that small niche. And it's been going great. My business has been going up, and it's been nothing but a good experience. And I think it is important to think about that. If you're a single tech, make sure that you're doing what you love doing, what you do best, focusing on that, and either outsourcing what you don't do so well or just not doing what you don't do so well, and just finding other people who you could maybe refer your clients to in that case.
That's a good idea, because I know there's a lot of shops out there that they will advertise a lot of things on their website. They'll advertise web development, they'll advertise computer repair, phone repair, all these different things they do. And I can see where if you have employees or if you have partners, people that are working with you, where maybe you can segment some of that stuff out, like this person is good at websites, this person is good at phone repair. What I don't see is we've got usually the one-person shop is sitting there. If they're not niching down to something, they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off. And I would think that would get I know it frustrates me, and that's why I've tried to really focus on the things that I'm good at in my business, in either partnering with somebody else to do the other things or just not providing them at all. I think sometimes as technicians we believe we have to do everything for everybody. And I don't think we can really focus that well and be as good in that one area if we're spread so thin.
Yeah, and the thing with me is that I knew that intellectually, but when I first started my computer business, I had no idea what I would niche down to. I didn't, I loved repairing computers. I loved working with technical things. I loved doing web development as well at that time, but I didn't know what was going to be a good service to provide. So just kind of by necessity, when I first started, I'm just like, hey, I can do everything, and we'll see what people want, and because I didn't want to offer web development, and then it ended up all the clients that I spoke to or networked with didn't need that service, and they ended up needing something else that I did. So I kind of threw it all out there, threw it at the wall, see what stuck, and it turned out WordPress web development was something that stuck a little more often, so it's something I started pursuing more and more until finally now I'm at the point where I can really just focus on nothing but that.
And that's a great point. So you tried out a bunch of things, found out what you were good at, found out what your customers in your area needed, and then focused on that. I think that's a great rule of thumb when you're starting your business and developing it.
Yeah, and it's worked out great.
Very cool. All right, Mr. Man in the Van, what's been going on in your world?
Well, I've been out looking for vans. I'm gonna get some pictures of other techs in their vans and start a little collage somewhere on the web.
Nice.
So we'll have a whole man in the van calendar working up here pretty soon.
Do they even sell vans anymore? Does anybody actually own a van?
It's a bunch of people. I saw a nice one on the road about a month ago, but it was too busy, way too busy. But yeah, there's a ton of them out there.
I see a lot of like HVAC companies with vans and stuff, but I don't see a lot of computer businesses with vans.
Yeah. I was going to say, as far as Ford, we got rid of the E-Series and went to the Transit Connects, which is a little different type of van.
Yeah, a lot of them are going with those little mini type deals, which they're nice. I mean, they probably work. But what it is we all want our cars, and it's just simple enough to throw a sign on the side of the door, or get the you can get the wraps now for your windows. So a lot of people I've seen doing that, they get their SUVs and do a wrap on the window. I don't. I don't want people on the road calling me. So.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Well, some people do, but it's not like a CEO is going to be looking at my car and ready to call. So.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I did. I tried that earlier in my computer consulting business. I had the magnet on the side of my car, and every single call I got as a result of that was a type of client that I didn't end up wanting to work with.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Now, do you understand why that was, or do you have some speculation on that?
For me, I just feel like the type of person who sees a vehicle and says, "Oh, that's the person I want to do business with," just because they see the car driving around, might not necessarily be the most discerning customer. That being said, I've called businesses by seeing their car driving around, so I mean I can't knock it, but it just, in my personal opinion, the people who ended up calling me from that magnet, I didn't end up working with. They were either price shopping, or they weren't really serious about getting work done, it seems like.
Okay.
That's what I found too. I pretty much liken it to the person that would call a computer repair person from the sign on a car, as to the same person that will call if they see a sign on the road at a exit on the highway, that sort of thing. But again, it depends on your target market. I mean,
Right.
My market is businesses, so a lot of businesses aren't going to be, checking cars on the road for their business. They want to get a referral, or they want to, look at some sort of directory or something where they're going to be seeing a company that's established, and they probably see the sign on the side of a car as somebody who, well, that person may not be around for 6 months, a year, or whatever. But residential people, I think it's a great thing. I mean, a lot, there's residential people don't always have the same resources to get referrals. So unless your neighbor has a guy,
Right. I used to do the magnets, and I was going to do some of the window wraps. I had some really nice one made up, and then I sold my vehicle. Part of me is almost to the point when it comes to that stuff where I almost want to separate my personal life from my business life. So when I'm driving around, yes, it's a great advertisement piece, and that's great. But I really, a lot of times when I'm out and about, I really don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's true.
I think so. I didn't want my personal vehicle to be like that. But if you do it nice, and I think car wraps are probably what does separate it. If you get your car nicely wrapped and it looks like a commercial vehicle,
Right.
then people are going to see it as that. For me, for some reason, the car sign is just a little stigma where it's, I can take it off and throw something else on there. Maybe I'll be a computer repair person today, but tomorrow I'll throw, handyman sign on there.
That's true.
So that's the only thing. But if it's a wrap or a professional painting, like that, I think people will look at that a little bit.
Marvin, have you been looking at my diary? Because that's kind of the type of things I did. Handyman one week and computer repair guy the next.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so we did get a voicemail, and I'm not going to play the voicemail, but basically they were asking about downloads on the website, on the Podnutz.com website, so, since we're kind of talking about that. And that is being worked on. Just so everybody knows, we understand that it's a problem. We understand some people want to download the MP3 and put it on their device of choice, and that's perfectly fine. And it will be coming soon. I just don't have a date when that will be there. So we're not trying to force everybody to subscribe or anything like that. That as long as you're listening to the show and you're getting something out of it, we don't really care how you listen to the show. So we will, as we're building the website out, we will be building those things in. I don't know anything about that. Matt probably has a better idea of things that need to be done, but that's for another time. So
yeah, speaking of the website, I love the new look of Podnutz. I haven't been on since you guys have done the redesign, and it's so cool. Love it.
Okay. Oh, appreciate that. I like it. To me, and I had nothing to do with it other than putting my content in there and up there on a weekly basis. But I really like, it's really slick looking to me. I think you can navigate on it very well. It's easy to use. So definitely check that out. Plus, we've got the live pages set up where you guys can watch any of the live shows that you like on the Podnutz Network. we're there for you. So that's awesome. But yes, the download link is coming. I know we have iTunes and an RSS feed that you can get to. We will get it to where you can download each episode to your heart's content. All right. Let's see. Let's go ahead and go into an email. All right. This is from David Ritter at computerigeeks.com. It says, "Hi, Jeff. I've been listening to your podcast for a couple months now, and it is great. All the information has been invaluable, and every time I listen to the ideas floating around in my head on I get ideas floating around in my head on new things to try. That's what we're here for. Okay, my question. I know it's wide open, but I'm asking anyway because you sound nice and you obviously know what you were doing." Quiet, Marvin. We don't have to tell him whatever happens in Chicago stays in Chicago. That's all we have to say there. Okay.
Yep. No. A real nice guy.
Yes, I am. All right. Question. How do small tech businesses like ours expand? It makes me want to bang my head against the wall. Here's some background on our company. My wife formed Computer iGeeks while I was working as a director of IT at Oklahoma State University Alumni Association. They started having money problems and started letting folks go and decided just to have OSU handle their IT. I was going to get another job, but my wife and I decided to join forces and work on the company together. And I think that's awesome. Family businesses are great. That was about 9 years ago. Good job there. Being in business for 9 years, especially with your spouse, that's awesome. I thought we would be bigger by now, but we're not. We have gradually made more money every year, though, and we have more clients. My wife handles the desktop support, mainly for residential, but some business clients. I handle mainly business clients with networking. This will be our best year yet, but it's still not that much money. We have other competitors here in Stillwater and one huge one in a nearby town called Cushing. We are friends with him, though, and even though he's branched out to a business clients in Stillwater, I think he has a staff of like 30 people. Wow. What are we doing wrong? I want to grow. We both are working so much right now that we can't handle any more small businesses that would demand a lot of attention. We also have a contract with an IT company to do the work at 3 different apartment complexes in town. That's awesome. The only way I know of is to hire another person, but we don't feel that there's enough work for that. Plus, we don't have the money to pay anyone. We are right in the middle. Any advice? Best regards, David from Computer iGeeks. David, thank you for the wonderful email and the thoroughness of it. And this is a great question. So, Marvin, what do you have to say for that as far as how does a small business expand themselves after being in business for 9 years? I mean, what are some of the things you can do? Because obviously we know a lot of us will be that technician that runs around like a chicken with our head cut off, and we never get a moment's rest.
Yeah. I will say this. Good job for 9 years also. A lot of companies don't last. So
that's right.
I mean, and I can say that specifically from my area because I've seen companies both small and large be gone in 1 to 2 years. And don't know all the reasons and don't know if it's because they just couldn't get the business or expanded too quickly or whatever. But I can say this: don't grow any faster than you can afford. So if you don't have the business yet to get that additional tech, don't stretch. That's probably one of the mistakes I think that I did when I had my techs is I got techs ahead of business. I was able to pay the bills and make it work, but I probably should have gotten more business to fully sustain the techs because when things did slow down, I had a tech sitting around half a day in an office with nothing to do. And I didn't want to pay the tech to just be sitting there. And the types of tech that I had at the time was the kind of tech that wasn't really going to be a go-getter and go learn something new unless I told him to. So for me, it was I didn't want to be a babysitter. I wanted somebody who, had a true interest in growing. So I would say that you've got to, look at your market, see if there's really room for you to grow. That's probably the biggest thing. And if there isn't, then maybe move the business in a direction where you do see growth. Maybe if you've got a lot of desktop support and that's not really cutting it, maybe move more towards, business server support. One of the things that I did was I geared myself towards businesses that had multiple offices, that I could specialize in connecting those offices, making them work together. A lot of techs didn't do that. It's not that it's really hard, but a lot of techs just don't want to be able to stretch themselves to support that. There's a ton of stuff out there, so I'll cut myself short and let Matt jump in and also give some points.
Yeah, I mean that's. I guess my question, and again, yeah, 9 years in business is great, and he mentions that he's been increasing, the revenue or whatever's been increasing every year. So I would ask him, why does he feel like he needs to grow much beyond that? It sounds like they're making enough to make a living. It sounds like things are slowly increasing year after year. So I mean, it sounds like you're doing a great job with it, and you might just be having kind of unrealistic expectations about where you should be at this point. And I would, be proud of where you've gotten to this point. That being said, of course, having a business means, wanting it to grow, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to take it to the next level, and seeing how far you can take it. So of course, that is something that you could look into. And for me, I found that a lot of times when a company's been in business for a while and they're looking to take it to the next level, you really kind of have to take some kind of bold action. You really have to do something outside of the box, really push, just kind of doing business as usual, kind of, just trying to find a couple extra clients here, trying to do a few extra things there, isn't going to give you the kind of growth that you might be looking for. So you might have to take some drastic actions, kind of like I did with going from computer consulting to specifically WordPress consulting. That was a scary transition, but it's been a transition that has really grown my business, and I see it growing exponentially from here. So that's the kind of bold step I'm talking about, really kind of changing your focus. A couple things you could look into. If you want to grow your business, there are a couple things you can do. You can increase your revenue or increase the number of clients you're getting. So increasing your revenue, you don't even have to get new clients if you raise your rates. You can raise your rates to get more revenue in, to grow your business, and at that point you might have enough revenue to then maybe hire another tech, so then you can take on the additional clients. So I would look into seeing if it's possible to raise your rates. That's always something that's kind of scary, and that's something I know you've talked about on this podcast before, and that's something to look into, even maybe not for all your services, but a couple key services that you feel like you can raise your rates, maybe raise your hourly rate by just a little bit. That's something you can do year after year. Get your clients used to that, so that they're used to their rates raising every now and then. That's something that just comes with doing business. So look into doing that. Look into raising the rates just past where you're comfortable doing it, and seeing how that goes. Another thing, to get more clients, if you've kind of tapped out your local market, you could look into offering remote support, which is something you can do with clients anywhere. So you can, if you're already doing remote support, see if you can try to expand that outside of your local geographic area. I know Lisa Hendrickson of Call That Girl does that. She does remote support only, and she offers it nationwide. So that's something to look into. That's a great way to grow your business, because there's virtually limitless amount of clients that you can tap into on a national level. So those are a couple things you can try: raising your rates, and doing remote support, so you can tap some unmet niches outside of your own area.
Yeah, that's all good. Those are great pieces of advice, guys. One of the things that I had sent him back was kind of the same thing you said. You can either raise your rates, have a smaller customer base where they're paying a little bit more, but you're able to either, like you said, go into businesses or do more residential. You can do that. The other thing, too, is, and from some of the technicians I've talked to, is every computer consulting company like ours that goes out there, they never I don't know any. All the ones I've talked to have never felt like they were ever at a point where they could hire somebody. But they had to make that jump and go ahead and hire somebody. And I told them, I said, you could start this on a part-time basis. You could do this as a subcontract. There are many different ways to do that to get you started and start building the business clientele up, so you have somebody that's on call that can take care of your customers on a regular basis. But no matter what size shop you are, whether it be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or however many, there's only so much work that can be done on a regular basis, and you just have to realize that. So my first thought is, depending on the area and stuff like that, you said, Matt, is go ahead and raise the rates a little bit and work less. Because what I see in this business a lot of times is people are working for pennies on the dollar, and they're working for a really reduced rate, and they're working. There's a lot of us out here that I've heard that are working 80-plus hours a week, and to them, that's a normal work week. And that's a lot, especially when you're only making whatever it might be. Let me put it this way. If you're working 80-plus hours a week and you're making under $100,000, and I'm not talking about gross business revenue, I'm talking about personal revenue coming into your household, I would probably look at a couple things there and make some adjustments, because you can't last like that forever. It's just not going to happen. We all get older. Health is a big factor. You want to think about those things. So that's kind of the same types of advice I had emailed him back with, and I think that's all good to go with, because you really got to look at your business, and kind of like you're doing, Matt, you're niching down, and even you, Marvin, you've niched down to a business networking consultant, really is what you're at, right?
Yep.
So I mean that makes perfect sense. You've niched yourself into something that you can charge a regular rate for and make a good living at, and not be running around like a chicken with your head cut off, even though you are a busy guy. And there's nothing wrong with being busy, but there's a point where the busyness, you're doing so many things that you realize you can't get stuff done in your business. And the other thing I said, you can probably outsource certain things, like books. A lot of us, probably at a certain point in our business, really should not be doing our own books. And Marvin, correct me, I believe your wife does your books, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So you have somebody that's doing your books. You're not having to do the books and having to fix the networks and having to run around town and all these other things that are added on. So there are some things you can outsource, and there's many, many different ways to outsource those things. You can get, there's companies that do it, there's virtual assistants, and there's a whole bunch of things that you could go into to make it easier on yourself. So those are some of the suggestions that I would put out there. Some of the things to look at and look in. And this is always a process. Nothing changes overnight. You have to take it step by step. You're going to make a ton of mistakes, and that's okay, because we all do. The only thing I ask is that you learn from those mistakes and move on. Once you learn from the mistakes, it's not a big deal. You can move on from there and go, I'll never do that again. And if you don't, well, I don't know what to tell you.
We can't help you.
Exactly. So anyways, okay, so I didn't get a chance to mention some of the things I've been working on over the last week. Is basically I have still been looking at my Google AdWords and finding a lot of interesting things about Google AdWords. We talked a little bit about it last week. I'm still finding people doing weird searches that are hitting my broad term keywords in Google AdWords. And so one of my keywords, for an example, so you guys understand this, is tech support. And I know it's broad term, and that's the way I left it, and I'm making some adjustments. Some of those I was shutting off, turning on. Anyways, one of the things that came up was Sprint phone tech support. Okay, so what I had to do is I had already tagged phone I think it was Sprint tech support. Now, why somebody would click on my website when it says TechNut computer repair, I have no idea. But maybe they were looking for a screen replacement or something like that, whatever. Anyways, so I've had to put different keywords, like Sprint is a negative keyword, so anytime anybody's typing for Sprint, because really I'm not concerned about the phones, and there's no laptops that are named Sprint as far as I know at this point, and if there are, so be it. So I'm trying to take some of those keywords and really dive down into what people are searching for. So those are some of the things I've been working on. The other big thing that I worked on this week was Friday. I had my 10-year-old and my 8-year-old build their first computer.
Nice.
So usually I've waited till my other 3 kids have all done it from when they're probably early teens. I made them all build a computer, or I didn't make them, but we sat down together and built a computer, showed them how to do that. And I probably would have waited, except my one son, my 10-year-old, had a 8-year-old computer, and my 8-year-old had a 6-year-old computer. Don't ask me how that worked out. They're about the same specs, just a couple years apart. And my 8-year-old computer, I was really having some problems with it, and basically the motherboard seems like it's going bad. So I said, you know what? I'm going to order some parts. I'll get them here before Wednesday, and we'll do Thanksgiving, and then Friday we'll spend a whole day and we'll build these computers. So they put in the I had them do the work, man. They put in the motherboards. They tightened down the screws, put all that stuff in, and we had a great time doing that. And they learned a lot. They learned a lot more of what the parts are in the computer and what they actually do. So they have a better understanding. They're both good with the creative stuff, the Minecraft and all that kind of stuff, and they can figure out how to mod their programs and how to record videos and all that. But this was kind of a neat process where they could actually see inside the computer, so that was exciting.
Yeah, I think that's how most of us, got started with our love of computers. It's just putting together custom PCs and figuring out how they work, and the best way to do that is by building your own from scratch and just, going through that trial and error type of thing.
I don't know if to be honest with you, I don't know if I will ever be able to go back to just buying something off the shelf.
Yeah,
same here. I just don't think I can. Now, when I get old like Marvin, maybe I'll surf the internet and I just don't. I don't want to do anything anymore. But
what's wrong with that? I buy off the shelf.
I know you do.
Or when you're busy and don't have the time to sit there and tinker with or put together a computer.
I mean, I'll customize it, but yeah, I don't have time to build anymore.
Now, Marvin, most of the time you're on a laptop, though, right? Do you have a desktop in your office?
Oh, I've got a desktop. I've got a desktop primary, and then I've got a laptop secondary, and then I've got my tablet and my other machines that I take with me.
Okay.
So.
Don't mention Fluke. We know. My other machines.
I have a new story about Fluke.
Oh, do tell.
Really?
Yeah, go ahead. Did it help you in your business?
Yes, and actually it falls under our vendor category.
Oh, yes. So one of our topics before he gets started is how do you deal with third-party vendors? And what I mean by that is a lot of us will go into a business. We might have to call the support for Peachtree, QuickBooks, Comcast, whatever it might be. How do we deal with those third-party vendors? Because there's a right way to do it, and then there's a wrong way to do it. There's a way that you can do it where you can make it work out, or if you get really irritated and you have short fuses and you kind of blow up at their tech support, then you might be in a world of hurt and not be able to do the things that you need to get done. So there's definitely a way of dealing with this. So go ahead with your story there, Marvin.
Well, one of the things to do is if you are able to work with a vendor over a significant period of time, you basically get names and contacts, and you treat them just like you would a customer or another consultant, and you try to do all of your projects with the same people. And so the internet service provider that I was working with is one that I've worked with probably 15 years, even though they've been bought and purchased and gobbled up. But my relationship has still been with them. So anytime somebody needs, a new internet or phones, I try to get them to work with this internet service provider. I know the service. I know their procedures as to how they set things up, and it works out great. So my customer is upgrading their data from, they've got a couple of 3 meg T1 connections and a couple of 10 meg fiber Ethernet connections. So we're upgrading all of their offices to a minimum of 20, and then their main hub office is getting 100. And then they're also getting voice over IP for their phones. And we're talking 8 locations.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot.
So one of the things that I do with my customers is I try to be the person that works between the customer and the phone people, and I do the data networking, and then the service provider does everything. So we were doing a cutover this past week, and the first thing I'll tell you is don't do a cutover in the middle of the day.
Now, what is a cutover?
Cutover is when you've got to transfer services either from one type of service to another. Usually it's where you're going from, say you're going from a DSL to an Ethernet connection, or you're going from one provider to another. In the case of, if you're going from an AT&T DSL to a Comcast cable connection, or Comcast, to an AT&T T1, that's a cutover, where you're actually cutting over services from one to another.
Okay.
Happens a lot of times with phones. That's probably the most that it's used, because you've got to port your phone numbers from one provider to another.
Right.
Well, we were doing all of that in one service call.
Ooh.
At 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Ooh. Wow.
And
Okay.
the reason we were doing that is because I wasn't the lead on this project. It's somebody else is managing the project, and I always make that a 4 or 5 o'clock start time, so that if something goes wrong, we're sending people home and they don't have to be affected business-wise. But in this case, it happened at 1, and about 1:15, went to cut over the data, and no internet.
Oh.
Which means we couldn't do the phones, we couldn't do anything else. Now, I've got my Fluke. Slow down, Bubba. But the reason I've used the Fluke is because I can pre-program my Fluke to act as the router. So I don't have to worry about changing any of the customer equipment or anything like that. I make sure that everything works with the Fluke ahead of time, so that as soon as they say go, I hit test, it goes through and does all the testing for me, checks the gateway, checks the router, tries to connect to the internet, except that I couldn't get to the internet.
Uh-oh.
I could get to the gateway, but not the internet, and I could see clearly it was a DNS issue. So very quickly I was able to say to the person on the phone, because even though there's a technician on site who handles the routers and stuff in the building, most of the work is done by guys on the phone. There's a service activation technician, there's some guy from translations for the phone, and so there's like 7 techs involved.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm the one saying, no, we've got a DNS issue. And the guy on the phone is like, nope, everything looks good in the router, it must be you. And
Didn't you say it was a DNS issue?
I did. So
Okay.
I just said, okay, so here's the DNS I'm using. And they're like, oh, well, no, use this one. So I very quickly changed out the DNS, put the new one in, hit test, boom, red X. I'm like, nope, that's not working either. So this starts the whole pointing of the fingers thing.
Oh, of course.
Now, because I've worked with this vendor, one of the technicians on site, I've done many cutovers with him. He knows to trust me. And he knows to trust the Fluke. So I had him, well, I didn't have him, but he was also on the phone, and he was telling the guys on the other side, guys, he knows what he's doing. He's right. It's on your side. And they literally were arguing for probably 15 minutes. I took a screenshot of my Fluke, sent it to them, and said, here's your problem. Fix it. And then after like another 10 minutes, it's like, oh, I had a number wrong in the IP. Test now. So I hit test on the Fluke, all green checks, we're good to go.
Gotcha.
So it was, but it was one of those things where I know that other techs, if they got in that sort of a situation, it's going to be finger pointing, it's going to be fighting, it's going to be, you screwed up. Why did, meanwhile my customer's down.
Right.
And they could have been down for hours. Who knows if we didn't have something to point to say, I've got a physical testing equipment in my hand. I've got technicians on site with me looking at it. They can see the big red X.
Right.
And it's saying DNS. So it pays to have the equipment, and again, the relationships with the tech on site that I've done stuff with him before, he was on my side, because a lot of times, they could just simply look at you and say, well, you screwed up, and then they would walk away. and then you're left fighting with some guy on the phone who has no idea what the equipment is, no idea the configuration.
That's a good point. You make a valid point, is that you've created a relationship with somebody that you work with all the time, and so when a situation like this comes up, they're able to back you up and get the problem solved a lot quicker than just sitting there. When you don't know somebody, it's easy to just go, no, it's your fault.
Right.
No, it's not. No, it's your fault. No, it's my fault. No, I mean, it's your fault. So that's a good lesson learned there. And now let me ask you a question. Now, when it comes to these situations, do you always keep your cool?
Always?
Most of the time?
Most of the time, I can. I mean, there have been some. Well, here I will tell you this. I've already got my list for the next project that we have, because again, we're going to do this 7 more times.
Okay.
So I already have my list of all the things that went wrong, so I can talk to everybody before the next one and say, look, this can't happen, this can't happen, this can't happen. And in this case, I don't have to lose my cool, because one, we were able to get everything back up and going. Now, the customer was losing their cool.
Right.
I mean, because normally this is like a 5-minute process. And 30 minutes in, they've got no internet, no phones, and they're screaming because the big boss didn't know we were doing this.
Of course, that's always the way it is. Yeah, we're a satellite office. We do what we want to do. Yeah, until the higher ups come down and say, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. So now I did have to kind of stand my ground, and I think that's the difference that I have, is that I don't have to yell at them. But I am able to stand my ground and say, look, don't try to tell me I'm wrong. Don't try to tell me it's my equipment or my customer's equipment or whatever. I know my stuff. I've been doing this long enough. And in the fact that I've done cutovers with that other tech, that tech was able to just sit there and say, guys, it's you. It's not him. And that did help.
Yeah, that's a big key to these interactions, and I found that especially when I used to work in corporate IT, and we're always having to call the vendors for stuff, and you have to be persistent, you have to be stern, I guess is the word. Don't let them push you over. Don't let them. You really have to kind of take control of the situation, let them know how it is. Having the data to back you up is definitely key, like you had the actual information in the screenshot there. But it's really easy for the vendor tech support guys, because they don't really have skin in the game. It's not their company, they're employees, so they're going to try to put the work on you as much as possible. And so you just have to stay firm. You have to really be persistent. Don't let them say, "Oh, it's on your end," and you're like, "Okay, I guess it's on my end." You really have to push them sometimes, and that's unfortunate, because they should be there to be helping you out and doing everything they can to resolve the situation. But sometimes that's not how it is, and you just have to keep pushing.
Well, the other thing you have to realize too is that a lot of these companies, when you're talking to some sort of tech support, they're going by a script, and they're on a computer and they type in the question or bring it up in a menu. The customer says, this is the problem, and this is what you tell the customer, and they don't really deviate off of that too much unless you get somebody that really has a wherewithal to basically go, I'm going to be better than my counterparts at my job and go above and beyond what I really should in a lot of these situations.
Well, and the fact that, in defense of them, there is a lot of times where it is the technician on site or the customer that is wrong. So it's that 50-50 game where, but I was able to sit there and show them, no, it's not on this side.
Right. I think we've all gone through some of that stuff. I know I hate troubleshooting, believe it or not. As a technician, I hate actually troubleshooting my own stuff. And I remember going through the cable debacle last year and calling tech support. And it basically got to the point where when I call tech support nowadays, I go, listen, I do this stuff all the time, and I'm not resetting the router. I'm not unplugging it. I'm not doing none of that stuff. It's already been done. I've traced it all the way back. It is a problem outside. You need to send somebody out. because I don't have a lot of time to sit there on the phone and waste time with them. I tell them, like you said, Matt, sternly, but also in a nice way. And that usually, as long as you're nice, a lot of times that goes a long way. Now, if you get somebody that's not going to agree with you or not going to help you out to the point that you need to be helped, there are times where I've actually hung up on that person and just recalled back and got somebody else in customer support. And that's helped me in the past too, where I've been able to bypass that. And that way I don't have to get irritated and upset. You'll find eventually with most companies you will find somebody that will go above and beyond what they normally do. So
Now, be careful which companies you do that with, because some companies, if they're not really that big, you hang up on somebody, call back, you get the same tech.
So sorry.
Bad
That's
connection.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. My cell phone dropped out. Happens all the time in this area.
Yeah.
So now, Marvin, from your standpoint, how do you mitigate the circumstance between your client and that third-party vendor? Because obviously they're looking to you. They know it's not your fault most of the time. They're visibly irritated. How do you keep them calm and say, we're going to get this resolved, we're working on this, without, because a lot of times it's easier to just throw the third-party vendor or another company under the bus. Yeah, there are a bunch of screw-ups over there. And that doesn't help anybody. So how do you deal with that?
No. One of the things that I try to do is, in most situations where I have been involved in helping to plan the project, ahead of time we go through all the variables of, this is what we're hoping happens, but in case it doesn't, here are the things that usually go wrong. And in the situation of a cutover that I was working on, usually I tell the customer ahead of time, look, we're hoping to be down 5 to 15 minutes. However, if something does go wrong, we could be down 2 hours. And so we tell them that ahead of time. I mean, that's pretty much the if you work with an AT&T or a Windstream or a Level 3 and they do a cutover call with you, they're going to schedule a 2-hour window. Okay. And they do that for a reason, because there are things that simply do take that long. And when you're doing, data and voice, and you're doing an MPLS, which is basically a wide area VPN, because we are connecting the 8 offices so they can pick up a phone, hit 3 digits, and get another office across the state. So that's a lot of moving parts. So ahead of time, you just have to basically lay out, look, there's a ton of stuff that can go wrong. So even though we plan and prepare as best we can, we have to realize that, one little digit can mess up a lot of things. So in that case, I wasn't in charge of the project, but I had to be the one to step in and say, look, I've done this before. Let me calm everybody down. Because like I said, there were 4 technicians from the service provider on site. 2 of them were handling, the equipment and the internet. There was a guy there doing the phones. There was a trainer there for phone training. And then I've got the customer there who wasn't the boss. It was her boss yelling at her, and she's got to come to, she's trying to yell at the service provider. So I had to step in and say, look, we'll get it taken care of. And, you just got to do your homework ahead of time to let people know, here's what we're expecting, here's the possible pitfalls, and here's how we're going to, fix it if they do come up. And, in that particular situation, one of the first things to do, if you're doing a cutover for internet, phones, or whatever, either do it, first thing in the morning. I recommend doing it at the end of the day. Right. Because it's much better to have something happen at 4:30, 4:45 and send people home as opposed to 9 o'clock and people can't work.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Now, Matt, from a help desk perspective, I know sometimes it's easier with the corporate job that you used to have. I know sometimes when people are calling in, it's easier to abuse people over the phone. I'll put it that way. How do you mitigate those circumstances to calm everybody down and get everybody flowing in the right direction?
It's tough. It's a personality thing, and you really just kind of have to not take things personally is a big part of it. I know a lot of people, when I used to work on a help desk, a lot of people who struggled with keeping composure in situations on the phone with clients and stuff were the type of people who were very emotional people who took things personally, or like, you're because you'll get yelled at by clients, and you just got to say, they're not yelling at me, they're yelling at the situation,
Sure.
the problem. And like I had one client who, no matter how much I bent over backwards for them, they would still, be like, "Oh, you guys are so lazy. You guys just aren't resolving the problems as quickly as you should be. And let me talk to your supervisor," and all that stuff. And so you just gotta have to, like, part of it was almost I had to have like an out-of-body experience and just like rise above my body and be looking at the situation from above and be like, I am not part of this, and how should I handle it without actually being in it? So it's really it can be tough, and you have to just kind of go through it a few times before you really understand that you just let it roll off your back and just think logically through it and how you're going to resolve it, and that's how I was able to do it.
That's good. Yeah, there's a reason I don't do phone support.
Yeah, I don't miss that part of it at all.
It's like, if I can't remote in your computer, you're either bringing it to me or I'm coming outside, one of the two. But no, there's a lot to be said for that. And I generally, as a general rule, I think that I'm cordial when I talk to other people, when I talk to third-party vendors. A lot of times I know it's not their fault, and they're trying to do the best they can do most of the time. Now, sometimes they might be lazy. It might not be doing their job. And then you kind of escalate it up, like you said, talking to a supervisor or something like that. But yeah, I think the biggest thing you said is really, Matt, is you don't take this stuff personally. It's not about you. It's about getting a job done. It's not about. There's a lot of us, I think, too. Even when it comes to customers, we get irritated with the customers because they don't understand. They're doing the same things over and over again. It's not our job to judge what they do or don't do. They're either a good fit for our business or they're not a good fit. But obviously, if we're keeping them around, they're a good fit. So we have to deal with that accordingly.
And that's a beautiful part about owning your own business, and that's the big difference between when I was on the help desk and now, is that, number one, a lot of the problems that I ran into with the interactions with clients were as a result of things that were outside of my control, like the way the IT department implemented certain things, the way my supervisors tell me to interact with clients, the things I can and can't do for clients. I don't have access to this, I can't work on that. So a lot of the things it was just frustrating. I couldn't help the clients like I wanted to because things outside of my control were preventing me from doing that. In your business, you have control over everything, so it's
right.
That's beautiful, and you can do whatever you need to make your clients happy. And also, again, there's those clients that are just never happy, and if you own your own business, you have the power of just saying, I'm sorry, it seems like our business isn't the best fit for what your needs are, and you part ways. And I can't do that in the help desk. I got to work with every client who calls me, but here I can choose to not work with a client that just is too much of a headache.
Now, why do you think it is that a lot of us will choose to work with everybody that comes across our path instead of being a little choosy up front? Is there a reason for that you guys can think of?
Well, depending on the stage of your business, I mean, if you're just starting out, you a lot of times don't have a choice. If you need an appointment, to make $100 to pay a bill, you take it. And
right.
That's, I think, the part of it. I think the other part of it is we probably take a lot of jobs thinking we'll fix it, we'll solve it, and we'll be the hero. And then if it takes a left turn, uh-oh. And it's how quickly can you fix and resolve the situation and get it back on course. So I think it's a lot of those combination things. I got to a point early in my business where I had the business, I had the good business, and so I could turn away things a lot earlier than a lot of techs. A lot of techs, it takes years before you can get to that point of being able to turn away business.
That's a good point.
Or fire a customer because they no longer fit. Actually, I've had customers call me and say, "Are we not big enough for you anymore?" or stuff like that. Even though size really wasn't the problem, it was the relationship or the type of work they were having me do. Because I think that turns out when they see you doing other stuff, that's not what they are. When I got to talking about the fact that I'm handling, multiple offices and I'm doing this and networking and I'm showing up with the equipment that costs, more than their cars, they're like, oh, well, apparently we're not the right kind of customer for him.
Yeah, sometimes they fire themselves. Sometimes you don't have to do it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you, it's nice to be in that position. I think the biggest thing is you grow your business to a point where you're able to make those choices. And I still think in the beginning, though, I really think that you can pick and choose a little bit with your customer base. In other words, a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it, so I know, is that I will take a customer, but I'm also charging a super extremely low rate. And because I'm doing that, or a customer balks about my rate, and I come down in price or things like that, because I go, well, to make something is better than nothing. But I think you have to build in your business. You have to build that line. Okay, I'm not going to cross this line. I'm not going to go any lower than this when you're starting off, because I think a lot of us we did go really low. That'll be an easy job. I'll just $20.
Yeah, it's scary because you don't know if the prices you're offering are going to end up being too high, and then you're not going to end up getting clients because it's just too high for people to consider working with you. So when you're first starting out, you don't know where that line is necessarily. So it's hard to do that at first, but it is good to stick to your guns and not drop the price too much for clients who are complaining about the price, but just keep a balance. As long as you're getting clients who are paying your price at a steady rate, then you know that what you're offering is worth the value, and then you have a better ground to stand on when someone tries to bring you down on price. You're like, well, I have all these other guys who are paying that much, so it must be worth it, so I'm not going to bring my price down for anybody else.
And the other thing, too, is I will say this. I think you really need to do some research in your area and figure out what the going rate is. Because I would tend to imagine that most of us, especially when you have low overhead, you're working out of your home, I would imagine that a lot of us are actually charging less than what the going rate on the market actually is in our given areas.
And going rate is subjective too, right? Because you might find like people on Craigslist who are offering, super low rates, and you might find the one or two guys in your area who are, college kids or whatever who can afford to not actually make an income from their business, and you can see those and say, oh man, the price is that low. I guess I better, undercut these guys. So you really have to be discerning in who you're comparing yourself to, and understanding that not every business is created equal, and not every price is something that you want to undercut.
Right. Very good points. Well, one of the things that I think we'll kind of end with this, but talking about we kind of segued into another subject. And one of the things I wanted to bring up a couple weeks ago, we didn't get a chance to, so I will this week, is about sabotaging yourself. And what I mean by that is, I've been getting a lot of phone calls lately that are calling and asking for certain types of repairs, certain things that are needed. And a lot of times I can tell right from the get-go what type of customer they are, usually by going, when they say, it's going to cost me this much, or how much is it going to cost me? Right at that point, I almost make this mental game in my head where I go, yeah, I don't know It's
like
probably,
right up front. That's like one of the first things they ask you, right?
right up
Yeah.
front. How much is it? I need this done. My hard drives. Here's your prime example. My hard drive died. I have my precious pictures on there. How much is it going to cost for you to get it back and fix it? Right at that point, I'm going, really, the precious pictures must not be that precious, because you're looking, what you're doing at that point, in my opinion, is you're shopping price. Now you take it somebody down the street that's going to, maybe they can get your data back, maybe they can't, whatever. You're going to get what you pay for a lot of times. But I look at those customers now and I go, it's probably going to be this much, but if this happens or this happens, it's going to probably be this added on top of that. So, and I'm not really sure if we can get the information back. We'll have to see. And I almost, to a certain extent, I look at it and I go, really, I'm kind of sabotaging my business, because I'm really, in a roundabout way, I'm really kind of turning that customer away.
Yeah, in that situation, what I would normally do is I wouldn't quote a price over the phone. If they ask, how much is this going to cost for this thing, I would say, well, I need to get a little better understanding of exactly what the situation is. I'd love to maybe take a look at your computer. Let's set up a time or set up an appointment. Try to get them into a relationship with you first. And if they're like, well, I'm not going to do that unless I know the price, then they're definitely not someone that you probably want to be doing business with. If they're like, okay, yeah, whatever, just I need this taken care of.
That's a good point. Kind of turn it around, throw the ball in their court, let them make a decision at that point. You're not actually turning the customer away. You're giving them an option, which the reality is, a lot of times when a customer is diagnosing the problem themselves,
right? How
many times are they wrong?
Right. So you could frame it as, I need to take a look at this specific situation in order to assess what kind of services are actually going to need to be done, and in order to do that, we need to set up an appointment. And so you can get that set up, and then do a diagnostic, and then quote a price after you either meet them in person or after you get their machine. Some further step that they need to take in order for them to show you that they're committed to you as a service provider.
That's a very good point. Marvin, what do you have to say to that?
I just always say, well, as soon as they ask about hard drive recovery of any sort, that could be a couple grand.
Ooh.
just tell them it, because 90% of the time, people like me can't do that. You've got to send your drive someplace, and here are the list of the companies that'll do it, and it's going to cost a couple of grand. Or if you want to bring it to me, and I'll look to see, is there anything we can do outside of that to where you don't have to send it in. But I can't give you a price because I don't know what's wrong, and that's not what I do full time.
Gotcha. That's a good point.
And then we go from there. I mean, if it's something where the drive's not really dead and we can recover pictures, well, we can all do that with our, either imaging the drive to another drive, doing a, backup, or we can use the low-cost recovery software that's out there. The problem is it takes time to do all that stuff.
Right, and how much time? I guess that's the other thing, not knowing exactly what's going on, because a lot of times there will be a time when a hard drive dies in this particular circumstance where maybe the drive's not spinning. They don't know that. You don't know that because you're not looking at it. You can't see it. So to take the time, I used to do a lot of free diagnostics, and I still do some, depending on what I'm looking at, and it's usually the 5-minute diagnostic is where we're at. As long as I don't have to break anything open, as soon as I'm opening a laptop, you're paying a diagnostic fee, regardless of whether you get it fixed or not. Because I got tired of taking these things apart and going, hey, here's the problem, and they go, hey, no, it's too expensive.
Yep.
I just wasted a bunch of time working on that particular thing. So, but, for a 5-minute, if they're going to bring it in, I can figure out, oh, yeah, this is wrong, and here's what it's going to cost. Most of the time, at that point, people will say, yeah, go ahead. Do it.
Yeah, they took the time to come out to you, and
right.
They're meeting you so they know you're a real person and you're trustworthy, and that kind of thing. That goes a long way in pushing them over the line to end up hiring you.
So I guess with all that being said, what I'm really getting at is there are the businesses out there that are I will take everybody if you have a pulse. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And then there's the people out there that are maybe on the other side and they go, yeah, I really don't feel like doing this anymore, so I'm just going to kind of cut back a little bit. And I'm going to turn away more customers than I'm actually going to deal with just because I really don't want to deal with them. And I think everybody can get to that point in their business on one side of the fence or the other if you're not careful. And you really have to figure out, and I like how you framed it, Matt, is that you kind of throw that ball into their court, let them kind of answering a question with a response of here's what we need to do, the next step, and give it to them, let them make that next step. If they don't want to, move on. It's fine. At that point, at least you know, and I think from that standpoint, it's a little bit better than going, yeah, this is going to cost you a boatload of money. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as servicing every client that comes your way, I mean that's a race to the bottom. Let Geek Squad take care of those everyone who comes to them. You want to, especially if you're a solo tech, you want to establish yourself as more of a boutique, I guess, service where you get better customer service, you get more attention, you get a higher level and quality of service when you come to me. And as a result, I'm not going to be able to service every single client that comes to me, and that's okay because you're going to have a price that reflects that.
That's a good point, because one of the other things I've been working on is kind of not a tagline, but something. I change my advertisement up on Google AdWords every once in a while. I changed some of the wording up on my website recently, and I started going. I was looking at some of the things that I was saying. The best computer repair in Canton, Michigan. To who? To who am I the best computer repair in Canton, Michigan? Nobody knows me. If you don't know me, you don't know whether I'm the best or not. So those types of words that we generally use are very broad and just kind of out there. And so I really started looking at my business and I go, okay, what type of business do I want to be? And I really want to be that local business, the old style local mom and pop shop where you come to me and we actually are creating a relationship with each other, and you're going to come back to me and you're going to trust me for all your technological needs. That's the type of relationship that I want. I'll take the one-offs. Maybe if you only need me once every couple of years, that's fine, whatever. But I really want to be that local person that can help you out whenever. And I've got plenty of customers that will call and say, "Hey, I just did something really stupid. What do I do?" Oh, that's not. It's not. Believe me, it wasn't that stupid. Here's what you do, and you help them out of those situations, and get those customers to keep coming back to you for whatever happens. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great philosophy or whatever you want to call it for your business. Is you're that local go-to guy who builds a relationship. So you definitely want to use that messaging in your website, especially because you're really pushing people towards the website with the Google AdWords and stuff. So when they get there, you want them to know right away that you're the local guy they can trust, and all that stuff. So that's good.
Yeah, because I see a lot of companies out there, and when you're in the Google AdWord game, you'll see a lot of companies that will all of a sudden pop up out of nowhere. Because I check my stats every once in a while, kind of see where I'm ranking, make sure that my ads are up towards the top where they should be, and I'll see these other companies come in. And this company might be 40 miles away from me, yet they advertise in my area, which I think is hilarious. Because okay, that's fine. You've got a bunch of on-site texts that you can send out. You're a bigger business. You can send them out, and they can go all over the place. But I think a lot of times in those situations, you really don't know who you're going to get. Like Marvin, in your situation, when a business company calls you, they know they're getting you. They're getting the guy with the fluke holster coming in to save the day.
Pretty much.
And I'm sure your customers appreciate having that one go-to person that they can go to. Now, not every company should be that way. I'm not saying that. I'm saying use your strengths in your business and niche down into those strengths. Make sure that you know what it is you want to portray as your business. Hey, if you want to be the next Staples or Best Buy or whatever, go for it. That's fine. That's not for me, and it's not going to be for everyone. Now, not everybody wants to be a single independent tech either, and I get that, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, the biggest thing is you've got to know what it is you do.
Yep.
And if you're going to just simply say, I'm going to do computer repair, you've got to realize that's a very big, broad area.
Yes, it is.
I used to distinguish myself by saying I do network administration and support. So right there in my thing, I could say, if somebody calls me up and says, hey, my scanner's not working, that's not really a part of network administration and support.
Gotcha. Okay.
First thing in the network is you got to have a server. You have a server at your house? No? Oh, sorry. But I know that a lot of the people listening are guys and gals that have stores. And that's probably one of the hardest areas because you're really at the mercy of who's coming into the store.
Right.
So, but even still, you've got to separate yourself. When I worked at the store that I was the service manager at before I started my business, we were the local, new and used computer store. And we were the ones that had the big service department. We could, work on, all your home computers. We could, build you a custom computer. It wasn't like, back then it was just, what is it? CompUSA was just getting started. Office Depot was just starting to sell computers, and they were getting, the cow off the internet is what they were doing. So that was our specialty. So we didn't compete against a whole lot of other people, and just trying to be a retail organization. So, even stores, you've got to pare down what it is you do, what it is that makes you unique to everybody else. And, we were a store that could, back in the day, you could take your computer in a store and have it be gone for 1 to 2 weeks. Our thing was we could get it back to you in, 48 to 72 hours.
Which is great. A lot of us don't realize that 48 to 72 hours. A lot of us are trying to same day. We're going to get it back to this, and that's fine if you can keep up that pace. It's again, for my business, that's not something I want to do. And guess what? Do you want me to do a rush job to get you your product back, or do you want me to make sure, which I always do my double and triple checks to make sure I've got everything done exactly right, so you're satisfied 100% when you get that device back? I can't always say that if I'm rushing something, I don't care how good you are as a human being. There's always things that I think about the next day or the day after that sometimes where I go, oh, did I, even if you've got a process sheet and you're doing all that kind of stuff, that's fine. But I still think that's a great amount of time, because if you take it to a big boutique store today, they will still, or big box store, they will still take sometimes a couple weeks to get that back to you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So. Well, does anybody else have anything to add on this subject? I just thought it was interesting, some of the things that I thought about in my business, some of the things I've been doing, and how to combat and be what I want to be in my business and niche down into the things that I want to be known for and the things that I'm good at.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to combat shooting yourself in the foot like that, is to just really think about who, like Marvin said, who you are as a business and what kind of services you're providing and what kind of customers you want, and make sure that you're consistent in your messaging, your advertisements, your website, everything is conveying that, so that way you're not presented with these situations where should I turn this person down? I'm just taking all this work that's coming to me. Just you make sure all the work that is coming to you is the kind of work that you want to do, and that's because all of your messaging is saying that.
Yep. Marvin, any last words?
Well, I did want to ask Matt. Matt, do you still have your calculator for what to charge?
Yes.
because I was going to say, because we brought up the concept of being sure you charge the right amount, and so I was going to say that people need to go to your site and find that. But also, what I've always done is I used to go to the U.S. Bureau of Salary, Wage, and Statistics or whatever, but if you just go to salary.com and type in PC technician or network administrator, and there's some other computer terms in there, and it will give you, based on your zip code, what the average salary is for that particular job description. And then you kind of have to extrapolate, in order for me to make this much money, how many hours do I work and what do I charge per hour to make that? And, you just be sure to put everything in there that goes with, insurance, rent, if you're renting space, training time, marketing, all of that stuff in there. So I go to salary.com. Actually, I'm signed up so that every month they send me an email with the latest salary that somebody, and I have it in as IT consultant. So for an average IT consultant in my area, this is how much I should be making. And I make sure that that covers, my house payment, my insurance, and all that stuff, and that's what I charge.
And that's also a good thing to go off of if you're planning on hiring another technician to help you out, just so you understand kind of what the go-in market rate for that is. So that calculator you mentioned is yfncg.com/calculator, and you can go there and it's a how much should I charge calculator for computer business owners, and you just plug in some information about your expenses, how much you want to make, some tax information, how many clients you expect to be taking on, and that'll give you an idea of what you should be charging hourly for your services.
Great tips right there, yes. So salary.com and then yfncg.com/calculator. I will have the links to those in the show notes. We'll have that set for you guys so you can use those tools and basically check out where you should be at and kind of give yourself a gauge.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think we have stocked the show full of packages and everything else. Oh, wait. Yes, the Christmas season is coming. I'm getting all ready.
Tied it up with a bow, put it under the tree.
That's right. We're going to wrap this puppy up. Not literally. So, Matt, you're doing a ton of different things. You've got your yfncg.com blog. You're doing the Computer Business Podcast with our friend Paco LeBron. And you're also doing your WordPress consulting business. But if people want to get in touch, and the great and wonderful Tech Site Builder.
Long list.
TechSiteBuilder.com. Matt, is there anything that you're not doing?
There's plenty I'm not doing. I'm not fixing TVs. I'm not doing plumbing.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right.
Yep.
So, Matt, if people want to get in touch with you and find out more about what you're up to and all the different places to go, where would you send them and how could they contact you?
Okay, how much time do we have? No. So if you're interested in a website for your computer business, check out TechSiteBuilder.com. That's a site builder that makes it really easy to get a website up and running for your computer business in less than an hour. If you're looking for more of an involved, personalized web development experience, and you like WordPress or you need help with WordPress, you could reach out to me at my WordPress consulting business, which is called Alador, and that's at ALDEOR. Did I spell that right? ALEDOR.com. My last name backwards. So alador.com for WordPress stuff. And if you just want tips and tricks on how to run a computer business effectively, go over to yfncg.com, your friendly neighborhood computer guy, and that's where we have the podcast and the blog and all of that other stuff to help you out with your computer business.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate all that, and definitely I will get all those links, even though it's going to take me forever, in the show notes.
Thanks.
And Marvin, Mr. Man in the Van, if people wanted to find out more about you and your flukes, where could they contact you?
Well, I've got a little bit more of a niche than Matt does, so you just go to maninthevan.net. That's all you need to know.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys coming out and sharing with us today. I think we've had some great conversations around some good topics, and I know I've learned something as usual, and that's why I love hosting this show. You guys can come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/live. You can also join in on a conversation by calling in live and hanging out in the chat room. We have audio available over at podnutz.com or subscribe using your favorite podcatcher. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Computer Repair Podcast, where you can find these and many more videos that we've done over the last year. Yes, we've been doing this for over a year, folks. Awesome. I'm very happy that I can't believe how many videos we've done, but it's been a lot of fun. So you guys can check that out and subscribe. You'll know when the newest podcast is coming out. You guys can also email questions and feedback if you want to talk to us about topics for the show over at podnutz@podnutz.com. Or you can leave a voicemail at 1-888-697-0162. And I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters. We really appreciate what you guys are doing over there. You guys, if you want to be a supporter, you can also do that by going to patreon.com/Computer Repair Podcast. And I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on Podnutz, the Computer Repair Podcast. Oh, and Marvin's taking over Chris's job.
We miss you, Chris.
So, Chris, now that the show's over, so Chris emailed me during the show, and basically he's having a problem with Hangouts. So, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to respond. He said everything else is working on his computer. So, I'm going to probably email him something back to the effect of user error, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean the lower third it still isn't working for me, so there's something kind of buggy about Hangouts today.
There is, and several people have done several different things by basically using a different browser. Sometimes they can get that to work. Marvin, what'd you do this time?
I'm on Firefox.
Firefox. I've heard that Firefox works with the lower third from a few people, so you can definitely try that out.
So Google's own browser, doesn't work with their own Hangouts.
What's been funny is I went from Windows 8.1 to Windows 10, and I absolutely have no problems with my lower thirds or anything else. Maybe that's because I'm in charge, but you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And remember, Google changed all their Google Plus is different and all their
Yeah.
And some of it I don't like.
No. The Google Plus is almost instead of being able to just stay where you're at, I don't know what it's doing, but a lot of programs and a lot of websites are doing this where it opens up this almost separate window, grays the background out, and you put your posts in there. And it's kind of like it's distracting instead of just keeping things right where you were at, right where you clicked on to start typing. It's going to open up another window, and then I got to go over there, and I got to start typing, and it just takes a lot longer. And I don't know, maybe those engineers are smarter than us, but I don't get it.
Wow, they've got to find a better way to track us, so.
Dude, I give them everything I have.
Yeah.
I don't care. Hey, no tinfoil hats here.
Yeah, I haven't even seen the new Google Plus yet. I've got to check that out.
Actually, the web version doesn't look like it's changed much. It's the mobile that's changed. On my pad, it comes up completely different. The notifications.
Yes, they're all down at the bottom now. I don't like that. You're right. I like it in the header of the message. Yeah. That was the other thing. But the same thing with even the other one. I just don't like how they've done the desktop version either. So
yeah, that's the only thing for certain is that things change, especially in this industry, in technology. It's
sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse.
Very true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to shut down the live feed. You guys can still hang out for a few minutes. I will do that. And you all have a great and wonderful week. We will see you next Sunday, and hopefully Chris will be back with us. Have a great week.
Bye.